There are two types of people in this world. Those who are inspired and those who inspire. Those who constantly long for and those who acquire. No idea is original, yes, there's truth in this. But the person who has the strength to implement the idea always is. Because there are those who have dreams and chase them, but those who sleep, waiting to be awakened, unaware that we can make a difference in our existence through hard work, resilience, and persistence. Because a man that wishes to move mountains must realize that he must first start by shoveling pebbles from its base, and be aware that no matter how long it takes, a man can move mountains. And most of you will think this is just a saying, and the majority won't believe me. But when you get a couple minutes on your PC, Google Dasharaf Manjihi.
We're delighted to have a very special guest, someone I'm seeming like that I know very well. We had a wonderful conversation. But before we get into that and meet Judith Wright, we have, of course, Abiatha Carroll, who wears a lot of hats for us in terms of being also a program coordinator. And we thank you again for helping us out and being one of our co-hosts.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure being here, and it's a pleasure to meet Judith Wright.
All right,
Thank you,
let's get into it. Judith, you are the co-founder of the Wright Institute, and there's, as they say, a long way from Tipperary. You know, you indicate, and it's hard to imagine now, but at one time you were trying to conquer a weight problem. Is that right?
Yeah, I was a fat little kid, and I was an overweight teenager. I was overweight as a young adult. I was fat. You know, I was overweight and overwrought, and
the whole nine yards.
Yeah, the whole thing.
Yes, and so there was a epiphany somewhere. You work with disabled students, if I understand. You have been a teacher. You're a yoga enthusiast. So where did the path begin where the Wright Institute was born, or the beginning, or the genesis of it? You know, I love that word, genesis.
It is a good word. But the Wright Institute is a company that my husband Bob and I founded, and what we're doing is really helping people have a great life, really learning the skills to have a great relationship, to have satisfying work and career, to be a great husband, father, wife, mother, to be great at your everything that you're doing, have a sense of well-being. But it really takes something. It's not, you know, it takes a commitment and also learning the skills to do that. And we've been able to discover what those things are, and now we teach that, and we do coaching, training, and seminars in these learning labs. And that's the good news now at this side of my life. I know how to have a great life. I know how to have a sense of well-being. I've learned a ton about intimacy and how to have a great relationship and enjoy my days. But it wasn't always that way, as you were talking about before. I was, you know, I was this overweight, kind of unhappy, you know, young woman. I felt empty. I was able to have a lot of career success. I was always a high achiever, even as a kid. You know, I got good grades, and I was a great student. I was valedictorian in my class, and I led a lot of things, and I volunteered. I was very active. So on the outside, it looked okay. I mean, except that I was chubby. You know, it looked like I was happy, but I really wasn't. I was really empty, and I couldn't quite figure out what was wrong in my life. And I tried everything, and I think many people can relate to that. You know, I tried achievement, I went on diets, I'd lose weight, gain it right back, I bought stuff, I did designer clothes, I, you know, partied, I did whatever I thought it would take, and nothing seemed to really work for me. I got into a relationship, and that wasn't it. Then I finally lost weight, and then that wasn't it. I was thin, and I kept it off, but I was thin and
unhappy still,
you know, so that wasn't the secret answer, and I could not find what it was, and I tried everything I could think of, and over and over and over again. Then I'd escalate, I'd do more of everything, and it was finally I realized this isn't working, and I was really at a point of, you know, one of those dark nights of the soul where it's like, if this isn't it, if it's not a guy, and it's not having the body that I want, if it's not achievement, then what the heck is it? What am I missing? And it was then that I had kind of an awakening when I was so desperate that I couldn't find what it was. And I was sick of living like I was sleepwalking in my life. And I realized, as you were saying, I was working with disabled students at the time. I set up these model programs for students with disabilities to be able to go to university. And I loved so many of those students that I was working with, and a lot of them would come into my office, and I was also their counselor, and I would just light up when they were around, and there was something, they were taking on their challenges as an adventure. They had some humor, some grace about it. Not everybody, other students didn't have that same attitude, and it was starting to dawn on me that there was something there, but I couldn't quite get it.
Yes.
And then later I came here to Chicago, and I had designed a program for little children with developmental disabilities and their families. And I realized that some of the families, even with this so-called tragedy, had done something that gave them a higher quality life than they'd had before this child was born with these issues. And I was trying to figure, what is this? Because when I looked, there were people who didn't have a perfect body or a perfect mind or perfect circumstances, but their life was much more fulfilling than mine was.
And the secret then was?
Well, what I looked at, what I saw as I spoke to them, is that they had made a decision. They had made a commitment about the quality of their life. I had not done that. I kept thinking, if I just do more, if I'm just more perfect, if I do everything right, if I just get the formula right, then I'll be happy. They had actually decided to be happy. They decided to have their lives be fulfilling. They decided to make the best out of whatever circumstances they had. And they really woke me up that I had it all wrong. It really wasn't about doing it all right. It was about deciding to be satisfied, not doing things so that I'd later be satisfied.
Okay, that's a marvelous statement. You know, you brought to mind the fact that we are busy, but we're not working. What I mean by that, in management, activity and work are not necessarily the same thing.
Yeah.
And work is something that you can measure. And I don't know why I came up with the phrase oceans of notions. We have oceans of notions, but not necessarily a direction or a paradigm. And this is what you provide, you and your husband provide through the Wright Institute. And you would consult people in a variety of different and diverse careers and stations in life. It could be a housewife who's returning to the workplace. It could be a business person trying to market better. It could be someone who's having, excuse me, problems with their interpersonal relationships or marriage, a weight problem, as you said. And the one thing in there is to decide that you can do better.
Well, I think that's really true. Most of us don't realize that there's this big decision we need to make about our lives. It's like John Lennon, you know, life is what happens when you're busy making other plans, and we forget to really have a guiding philosophy for our lives. And we all try a lot of things to feel better about our lives, to have more satisfaction. We take classes and we get a new job, we get into a relationship, we buy new stuff or whatever. And that's all fine, but that's really not the answer. And all those situations you're talking about, whether it's a young college graduate or an empty nester or a fellow at the very peak of his career who's got all the external things, but there's still something missing inside. What's in common with everyone is that if you want a great life requires a great decision. What I now call the one decision. It's one firm life commitment to what quality of life you want to live, and let that then guide those other choices of your life.
We're talking with Judith Wright from the Wright Institute. Also, Abiatha Carroll is helping with me with this wonderful opportunity. I've worked a little bit with Les Brown, and I won't say I'm a Tony Robbins devotee, but I find a lot of energy that you have. It comes through on the phone, and sometimes you're just dreading an interview. This one I was looking forward to, and I'm not saying it just to stroke you, because believe me, this is hard work. But at the same time, I come away with what I call some life-changing information and discover life-changing opportunities through the guests that we have. And so that's why I'm delighted that you're here. Now, one thing I didn't ask you the other day, remember I said I was going to hold back a little bit, and I don't have a rock down here.
All right, I'm safe, that's good.
But besides your hubby, and we'll talk about Bob in a minute, who are your heroes?
Oh, that's a really good question. You know, my heroes are people who've made this big kind of commitment. One of my heroes is Abraham Lincoln.
Yes.
You know, Abraham Lincoln made a one decision. When he was 23 years old, he made this decision that his life was going to be something, that he was going to earn the respect of other people, and that his life would not be complete until he felt that he was held in esteem by others. And he's, you know, a young fellow, 23, and what happened with that decision is that, you know, all the things he went through in his life, you know, he had depressive episodes, all the attacks, all the things he went through. He really had tough times.
And then here he is deciding how the union's going to be divided,
Yes.
that's got to be monumental.
Oh, can you imagine? I mean, just
Yeah.
the pressure. And what he talked about and what he said is that there was even a time he wanted to end his life. That he
Yes.
he was ready to end it, but he said, no, I haven't yet earned the esteem of other people. And that's what I said I was going to do.
That was his one decision.
That was his one decision. And that's that kind of power. You know, Mother Teresa, Gandhi, Abraham Lincoln, Albert Schweitzer is another one of my heroes. Just people who have made this life-defining choice, and then you see, it's almost like there's this line in the sand. Their life changes after that.
Les
point.
Brown has some soliloquy, and I'm really messing it up, but he says, rain, sea, there's snow, no person, place, or thing shall keep me from my dream. You know, I
that's
think
great.
that's where we're at with the one decision.
We, excuse me, but we have this wonderful book with this wonderful picture on it. There must be more than this, more than this. And when did you write this?
I wrote that in 2002. It was published in 2003.
And what were you going through? Was this the ultimate of something that you had overcome?
Well, you know, I think it is, because that feeling of there must be more than this, I think, is a feeling that had haunted me ever since I was a kid. It felt like something was missing.
There was a hole in your heart.
There really
so to
was a
speak,
hole
yeah.
in my heart. It's a very good way to put it. And I was always seeking, what is this more? And it wasn't more stuff and more activity in the things that I did. But there is, you know, it's more intimacy, more love, more connection, more purpose, more energy.
Sure,
And
sure.
what it took me, and part of that's what that's about, is really overcoming what I now call my soft addictions. All those.
Tell
you
us
know,
some of those. I find that some of them are so common you don't think of it
Oh,
as
they
an
are. They're
addiction.
these seemingly harmless habits, but it can be over shopping, it can be gossiping, getting on the internet, checking your email compulsively, or you know,
Yeah,
financial
yeah.
stats, or watching too much TV, unless it's your program, or you know, or things like
Boy, she's
yeah.
smooth. You
You
get
know,
another
it's-
15 minutes.
you know, or too much chocolate, or
Yeah,
collecting. But
sure.
you know, we all have them to a degree, but we don't really realize those things are robbing us. We go
Yeah.
to them thinking we're going to get a little break, and
Yeah.
we deserve a break, but these things don't do it. They put you kind of in a trance. You get a
We
little
kind of
numb.
major in that which is minor,
Oh.
and minor in what's major,
That's
right?
so well put. That's really well put, and it becomes a big part of your lifestyle.
You know, a couple of times that you have said, excuse me, Mark, a couple of times you said, and one of the things I wrote down here was that when you started working with the disabilities children, you said, I love, and once you said that, you start building off of that. And then you say, I move. And you just said a few minutes ago that I love. And so if you don't love, then you can never make the one decision.
Well, you know, it goes both ways. If you really love something, and then you can commit to it. But then what I also found is sometimes you have to commit before you can really allow your caring and your love to come out too. So I've seen now it can kind of go both ways. But you're right, it's really about, you know, having passion and really committing to what it is. There's actually a whole chapter in here called The Desire, you know, really getting in touch with what it is you really yearn for. And there's another one, there's a whole chapter on love in there. It's called The Way of the Heart. And I think you're right, it really matters.
So now you come up with this another wonderful book. And this one is called The One Decision. Tell us about that one.
Well, they're in some ways a little bit related, because it was my making my one decision that helped me understand that there were things I was doing that wasn't really serving me. Because finally, in this point of desperation I talked to you about earlier, I finally decided I am sick of sleepwalking through my life. I'm sick of not feeling it. I felt like I was wrapped in cotton in my life.
I love that phrase, sleepwalking through my
Oh,
life.
it just felt that way.
You ought to
know,
patent
like-
that one.
Yeah, I
you know,
should
like
probably
3P,
do that
you know?
too.
Right, right.
And my one decision, I'm going to feel my life. I'm going to be present. I'm going to make a difference. I'm going to surrender to spirit. And those things then started to guide my life. I wanted to be conscious. I wanted to be awake. And then when I started to look at my life through that lens, I saw, oh my gosh, I'm doing an awful lot of things that are making me numb, not awake. There's things that are shutting me down. These things I thought were taking care of me are actually taking away from me. And it was only when I'd made that one decision that I could actually see, I could kind of measure it, you know, doing some of, you know, watching tons of TV and over snacking and eating lots of ice cream or whatever. It's not a sin, but that wasn't adding to the quality of my life. Hanging out in the malls, you know, on Saturdays wasn't really helping me feel more alive. It
Constructive,
wasn't
yeah.
constructive. And it
Yeah.
helped me see, you know what, that's not working well for me. Let me change that.
Now, you have seminars that you do, you have an institute, you do speaking and so forth. I guess the initial point of departure for everybody is to take an inventory. Is that right?
Sometimes it helps. You know, sometimes people come to this kind of awakening, but it's it's an illness, or they're divorced, or there's a trauma, or they're laid off from their job. There's a fork in the road, and sometimes it comes then like, wait a minute, I've got to make a change. Something's happening, but then sometimes you don't know how to do that. You know, for other people, they're kind of like me. They're just keep trying things and nothing seems to work, and they finally get so dissatisfied.
Peggy Lee says, is that all there is?
I know, it's that feeling. Is that all there is? And I think many of us can relate to that. Or you try really hard, you reach a goal, and then you go, you know, and then it lasts for about a second.
Sure.
So it's really, what I try to do in the One Decision is take, what do people do in those kinds of situations? Like Lance Armstrong, when he was stricken with cancer, didn't just focus on surviving. He chose to live strong. You know, that's pretty powerful, those kinds of commitments. So what I've looked at is, how do you do that so you don't have to wait till there's a trauma or an illness or something to really grab that quality of life?
So how did you get Wonderful Bob?
See, that was my love. Yeah, we got to get Bob in here.
I do. I love my guy. I love my husband, Bob. Well, that is interesting. I'd actually, you know, that's part of my One Decision, too. It really was, because I was in this other relationship with a college sweetheart early on. I thought he was the answer. He looked like Sylvester Stallone. He just had a genius IQ. I'm like, yes, this is it, you know? But it wasn't really a relationship. It wasn't, it wasn't really something that had depth to it. And after I made my One Decision, I realized, no, that's not the kind of relationship for me. I didn't know what it was going to be then.
But that
I knew it wasn't it. I had a way to measure it. Otherwise, I couldn't see it. So I left, you know, that. I went off and tried to develop my own life, and I started dating differently. I started dating different kinds of men, quality kinds of men. I tested them more. I was more honest instead of like, hey, you know, hey, I hope you like me. You know, instead of being so ingenuine, I really decided I would be myself as fully as I could. And I was actually I was set up with Bob, my mutual friend, and I was one of those first dates where I've never experienced anything like that before. I was totally, to the best of my ability, myself and honest, and he was. We told each other what we liked and didn't like about each other in the conversations, and I'm like, this is different. You know, we weren't trying to impress one another, and ultimately what happened is I really found that I was with a man of intense integrity, and it just really has gone from there. Really, I had no idea that you could be that honest and that revealed and that intimate
and not
with
hate each other.
And not hate, well, we do hate each other too, but that's part of, I mean, part of loving one another, to really tussle
And you
things
pointed
out.
that out, in marriage or whatever, when you have these skills that you learn to, you help people to develop, you impart them, that it's about success and not perfection.
Oh, that's such an important
Expand on
thing.
that, you know.
Yeah, it is about success and not perfection. I thought perfection would give me success. You know, I thought if I just get another A, you know, if I do better. And I mean, I'd risen to national prominence in my career, 2 different careers actually, by the time I was 30. So I'd really, you know, I thought, okay, if I just do all these good things, then I'll be happy. And I really wasn't. I thought if I had the perfect body, the perfect guide, the perfect circumstances, if I did everything perfectly, then I'd be successful and then I'd be happy. I might have been successful at some level, but I wasn't happy. And it really was working with people with these different disabling conditions that really helped me see that. I just saw this essence of the human spirit that had nothing to do with being perfect. It wasn't even possible for them to have the perfect body, but they did have success. And they were just, you know, many of them just really taught me so much about what it's really about. It just, I had it all wrong. It's not about doing it all right.
But I'm sure a lot of people in our audience have it all wrong.
Oh,
We're
I think
chasing the
so.
wrong rainbow and probably spend 10, 20, 30 years doing the wrong thing for the wrong reason.
Well, I think that's true.
And if I understand from your colleagues and yourself, what the Wright Institute does is to give people, help them do the right thing at the right time for the right reason and the right result.
I think that's well put. It's exactly true, and that's why it's, you know, people, a lot of times people are doing good things, but not the right things.
Sure.
You know, or they're not doing the right thing for them. And part of what we help people do is really create like a vision for their life. Most people do not want enough. People don't dream big enough. They've given up, or they're settling, or think they can't have it or it's for someone else. But one of the things we do is really help people create a grounded vision for themselves, one that you can really live, not a fantasy, but a really beautiful vision of what's possible. And then not just only encourage them, but literally teach them the skills. We've been very, very lucky to have developed over 25 years really a curriculum of what are the literal skills that you need for a successful relationship or to be satisfied in your career. As a parent or as a single person, it's there's literal skills that you can learn that make that big difference.
Yeah, and I like the fact that you mentioned parenting as one of the areas that you improve. Now, I guess in a way we've covered it, but let's dignify the word, the undecision.
Okay.
All right, talk about the undecision. When I saw that, I said she's made up her own vocabulary,
It's
and
true.
I like that in it, you know. But tell us, seriously.
Well, we've made it clear pretty much about the one decision being a commitment to the quality of your life. But most of us make what I now call undecisions, and they have that. It's the same thing. I had decided to lose weight. That was a decision I'd made. It was a real decision, and then I lost weight, but then again I was still unhappy. So I thought if I lost weight, then I'd be happy. I'm going to lose weight so that I'll be happy. Oftentimes, it's a goal. It's not a bad thing. Sometimes undecisions are like some of our goals. We think that if I just move to that city, then I'll be happy. Or if I just change jobs, then I'll be happy.
I have this car, this home, this degree,
and
so forth and so on.
That's the answer.
All right. You heard it here. We're talking with Judith Wright from the Wright Institute, and this is really fascinating. I hope that you grab a pen and call a friend, or is it grab a friend and call a pen? I'm not quite sure. But the number on the screen is to call at 773-420-3645, and you are the co-founder of the Wright Institute, and also a Michigander. I got to get that in there. She's from Michigan. And I was showing her pictures a little earlier of, actually I started to say our old home, but our old home is under some cement right now in Lansing, Michigan. Now, you just got to get this in here, a little personal stuff. Yoga, you mentioned yoga. Are you a yoga devotee, a teacher, or what are you?
You know, I'm not. I love it. I like it. You know, I think anything.
What does it do for you?
You know, for me, I used to do things, interestingly enough, because after I made my one decision, things changed. I used to work out or do things so that then I'd be thin, so that now I just enjoy being in my body and using it and finding out what it can do and being flexible and opening myself up in a different way. It's not just, okay, burn those calories, count that, but yoga gives you an experience of being more fluid and flexible in your body. You know, for me, it's to ride my bike, to be in nature. How I work out now feels more like recess, and it used to feel like it was like work.
My goodness, that is, you know, someone said that the greatest blessing we can have is that what you do for a living is what you live to do, and I think that you're at that point right now. If you could wave a magic wand, this is a famous magic wand question, folks, how would you change the world?
Oh, I think that's a really important question, and it matters to me, and I think it to all of us in our hearts. If I could, I would, the kind of things we're talking about, I would like for everybody to know that there's a high quality of life available for everyone.
It's their birthright.
It is their birthright to really live a life that's satisfying and fulfilling, that we don't need to compromise, we just need to have the support and learn the skills to do that. But, you know, my wish for the world is that we become more conscious, that we're not losing ourselves in these things that don't really fulfill us, that we're really being in our hearts and we have our feelings and we connect deeply with one another and have substantive conversations and really are that we're awake and in our hearts and that we're having big dreams and we help each other make our dreams come true. Because I think with that, things really change. Things really shift in the quality of relationships and in families and in community and businesses, and I think eventually it ripples all the way through because we start knowing ourselves better and knowing one another better. So for me, it's being awake. It's like my one decision, to be conscious, to be awake, and to be in our hearts.
Now, I want to give your hubby credit because you did the other day. You said there were several things you wouldn't have done had it not been for your husband's support.
It's really true. I didn't want enough myself. That's partly why I think I want people to see that. You know, I didn't see what was possible. And I would never have seen myself as an author. I might have had a vague wish I'd like to write someday, but I wouldn't have seen it. He saw that for me. I don't know that I'd be a public speaker. He saw that. He saw that I had an ability, and he loved what happened when I was speaking to audiences. And
you sparkle, you really do. You have a contagious enthusiasm. and it's believable.
Oh,
you know,
that's
especially
nice.
when you tell your testimony.
Yeah,
right?
that's
what we
yes,
say in
yeah.
religious
Yeah,
circles.
that's right, your testimony.
Pastor Sims comes up here. We'll talk about testimony.
Yeah,
You got a great one.
Oh,
you know.
that's great to
But
hear.
you've done more than survive. You've succeeded, and that's the thing I try to stress. I think a lot of us is just like you said. We're just, you know,
It's
we're in
so
a grave.
easy.
It's, you know, what's the definition? A grave is a rut. Is just a grave with both ends kicked out, right?
I think it's really true, and I think that most people do live that way, not knowing that it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
It really can change. But part of it is having people that can hold a vision for you, that can see what's possible when you can't see it for yourself. Somebody to invite that spark of your spirit out and believe in you and help you do that. And my husband and others have done that for me, and it's wonderful. And hopefully I can do that for others, and we can keep passing that on.
We just got a couple of minutes left, so I want to mention these wonderful hardcover books. What a nice picture. As he said, there must be more than this. And we're talking about soft editions. This was your first tome,
It was,
is that
yes,
right?
it was.
And then somewhere between Good Morning America and Fox TV, you did this one.
I did.
It's called The One Decision. I like this cover. That one just stands out there. And this is the life-changing opportunity right here.
It
This
really
is the
is.
thing that, as we say sometimes, the come to Jesus meeting.
That's right,
here,
it really
that
is
you have
true.
with yourself.
It's
you know what I
really
mean?
true. And
Yeah.
then what I did is help people learn how to do that. All the skills are there so that you don't have to wait. You don't have to wait for an epiphany or a trauma. You can really choose.
I think it's really critical. We just, as you observed, had a panel with Tom Wiley and Rich Cooper. They are financial planners. But I think what people miss is that financial planning, although critical, is not as important as what? Life planning. And so you're an author, a coach, a co-founder, an entrepreneur, a yoga did I miss anything?
I think you're doing pretty well.
Well, the wife.
Oh, yes,
I like,
yeah,
you know, and as a wife, I think that a
yes.
wife is an
Yes,
important
yes,
role for me. I think
Yes,
that's an
yes.
important one.
And I commend your wonderful husband.
Oh, that's great.
Yes,
He
I
really is
commend
one of
you
my
on that.
heroes, and I
Yes,
feel really
yes, yes.
blessed to have
But
learned
on the
about
other hand, he
relationship.
married up, right? Okay. He married up. We just got a minute or so left, and you did very well with the magic wand question. Real quickly, what can we expect in the next 2 to 10 years from the Wright Institute? You know, you've done this a quarter of a century. You got it down pat. You're just sailing right along. I'm delighted. You can't run me away now. You know?
That's great.
What's next?
Well, we're looking at, we do coaching now, we do training, and we also do these learning laboratories where people come together and actually learn skills with one another. And these three things are really very potent. We see people's lives changing in front of us all the time. So what we're doing now is trying to get that out to more people. Partly the books, we're doing very big seminars, I'm doing one decision trainings where hundreds of people come, and what we're looking at is how to take the curriculum that we're using in this way and get it out in as many places as we can to impact families and businesses, to give people a year of transformation that we have. We have this Year of More program. We're doing all kinds of ways where we can help people have easier ways to change their lives.
Well, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. Now, you have one campus, is that right, here in Chicago?
We do.
And then you do seminars, and they can call the number on the screen. I know you're going to provide us with up-to-date information about where you're going to be. I'd like to invite you publicly, putting you on the spot now, right, to ACES Business Network, a group of entrepreneurs and nonprofits that meet every Monday morning at the Chatham Pancake House, 700 East 87th Street. And we meet at 7:15. I think you're an early riser,
I
right?
am.
And I'd like you to come and observe once, and then we'll schedule where you present.
Oh, I'd love that.
Because
That's great.
these are all people that are trying to get to know, like, and trust one another. And I think if they haven't made the one decision, they're trying to.
Sure.
I believe you could help them along.
That's great.
It's really my delight to talk to you, Judith, because there are three kinds of people in the world: those that make things happen, and those that watch things happen, and those that wonder what happened. And we don't find too many in the third category, but you have a ministry, and I'm really gung-ho on saying that to people. That doesn't mean you're inappropriate. That means that you see into the needs of others, and you make them stronger, and they are successful and not survive it. And when I hear that drum roll, it's time to shake hands. I've been here with, what fun we've had. Judith Wright, Wright Institute co-founder. You want more information, call the number on the screen. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Her hand feels better than yours.
It's okay.
And thank you for our little memento
See,
here.
it's great.
The one decision. And I'm sure people ask me about that, and that's